Joining me now is News Corp columnist Angela Mollard and Sky News contributor Louise Roberts. Angela, there's been plenty of back and forth between Trump and the Sussexes over recent years. Could a Trump presidency mean anything at all for the couple?
Look, it could, and as you've discussed there, it has been threatened in the past. But I think as Trump gets closer and closer to the presidency, and if he is elected president, he wants another invitation to Buckingham Palace. You can see how excited he was by his time with the Queen. The whole family was there. Eric was there in 2019, his son as well. And what he's now saying is that Harry has nothing to be worried about being deported. In fact, he's going so far almost to say that Harry and Meghan are irrelevant, which suggests to me that he and the Trump family are really trying to strengthen their bonds with Charles and Camilla and William and that part of the family, and that they're not really taking much interest in Harry. Who knows how it'll play out? There's still pressure from the Heritage Foundation for there to be some disclosure around Harry's visa papers, because as someone who just recently did an American visa, it's very clear you have to state whether or not you've taken drugs. And we know that in Spare, Harry spoke at length about taking drugs. So it hasn't fully played out yet, but it's an interesting turn of events.
Look, I totally agree with your view, but I do expect there to be a bit more performance around this. Now, Louise, this isn't the first time the Trump camp has commented on the Sussexes for what seems like that domestic political purpose. Do you think it works?
Look, I think it does work for Trump. I think to weaponise his contempt for Harry and Meghan, in particular Meghan, really plays well to his conservative base, because Harry and Meghan are the face of the woke elite in America, aren't they? They're sort of whinging grifters, if you were. And that really plays well to the average Trump voter who doesn't like that sort of person, doesn't like to be spoken down to or patronised in any way. And of course, Trump has been very blunt in his appraisal, again, particularly of Meghan, saying that Harry's whipped. He told Piers Morgan in an interview that Harry was whipped and that the marriage wouldn't last, and that, in fact, that Meghan was using him. So he's been very savage in his appraisal of Meghan in particular. And again, he's weaponising that to remind his voters who to vote for, in a way.
In a way. Angela, still on the Sussexes, and a report this week that another of Meghan Markle's claims about the royal family has been debunked. What's the report?
So, Caroline, you remember when Meghan Markle came out and she said that she had not had any support from the royal family when she entered the family, that she didn't get mental health support when she needed it, and that there was really no instruction or support. Well, a royal insider has come out and said that Sir Clive Alderton, who currently works for the King, that he was very mindful that she should be fully supported. Of course, she was from America. It's utterly implausible to me that Meghan was not offered support. After the Diana debacle, after all the horrors that went around Fergie, the Duchess of York, after the Camilla problem, Camilla, after Diana's death, trying to reintroduce her as Charles's consort and partner, that had to be micromanaged. That doesn't suggest to me that a palace would turn around and go, oh, she can just work it out herself. Of course they would have steered her through it. But as the late Queen said, recollections may vary. I think it's interesting that we're getting more information about these anecdotes by Meghan, and that they are being widely disproven. More and more people from the palace or palace adjacent are starting to speak out. And I think as more of those people leave the employ of the royal family, we may start to get more murmurs about what was happening behind the scenes.
And Louise, if that wasn't enough in not a great week for Meghan, still trademark issues in relation to American Riviera Orchard, and just the Sussexes, I suppose, their professional views more broadly.
Yes, look, I think as a partnership, as a business partnership, they're still very toxic on many levels. Perhaps that's why they've sort of ventured into this new property situation in Portugal. But I think for Meghan as well, that whole American Riviera Orchard, when she soft launched it in March with sort of gifts of jam and dog biscuits to her celebrity chums, they hadn't tied up the patent, which is crazy. I don't know why they didn't actually get the paperwork sorted. And what's happened now is that another company has come forward called, ironically, Harry and David, who says that they own the trademark Royal Riviera. So, and they argue that, of course, American Riviera is a bit of a contradiction in terms and a bit too close for comfort for their brand, which generates 3 billion Australian dollars a year, has over 3,000 staff, has a beautiful website with these fantastic gift baskets, etc. So Meghan, you know, whether she does manage to launch this and obviously launch the adjacent Netflix cooking show, where it remains to be seen, I think, but she's still got a lot of background work to do. And the other big issue for her, of course, is she was trying to trademark a geographical area of California, which you cannot do. You can't suddenly hive off an area of Santa Barbara and say, I own the copyright to that. It just doesn't work that way. And the US Patent Office have come down on her very hard indeed.
Now, Angela, Louise alluded to it, and on the back of that property purchase in Portugal, it's been reported this week that the Sussexes could in fact turn their efforts to building a property empire. Is that right? Where has that allegation come from?
Look, it's coming from the Sun newspaper and has been widely reported. We haven't fully confirmed that they bought that Portuguese property. There's even some discussion that that property was bought so that Harry would have a bolt hole to go to should anything happen to the marriage, which is a really interesting proposition in itself. In any case, they made a lot of money from Netflix. They've got $75 million that they earned from Netflix, Harry and Meghan. There was a £15,000 advance, so $30,000 on Harry's book Spare, which was a bestseller, so he will have earned out that advance and millions more from it. They have to park their money somewhere. And interestingly, the Sunday Times today is reporting they have finally, in the UK, finally got eyes on how much property the royal family, how much Charles and William own, and it's over £600 million. So you think about double that in dollars. So in terms of having a history of owning property, that's what Harry's grown up with. He's seen his father and his brother having to manage that. It's not outside the realms of possibility that they would buy more property. But the suggestion that the Portuguese property is going to go on Airbnb, I don't think so. If you've got that money, you don't have to get a few thousand dollars from holidaymakers, do you?
No, I don't think you do. Now, Harry, this week, he made an appearance at NATO. Louise, what was notable about it?
He was on a video call from Montecito. There was a NATO meeting, and part of that was him talking about the great work that Invictus has done, obviously, to help return servicemen and women who are injured in combat. And of course, you know, we've talked on this show before about what a great legacy Invictus is for Harry. So I was a little surprised that there was a bit of sort of white noise around him talking to NATO, in the sense that people were saying, well, what country does Harry represent? How can he have a view on this? What's he got to say? He's just using it as a shameless publicity opportunity. Look, all of that may be true, of course, as well, but I don't think you can doubt his devotion to Invictus and the work that it does too. And of course, within the military itself, there are people who still are quite aggrieved about his boasts in his own book about how he killed a number of Taliban soldiers.
And now we're getting through all the royals this week. The Duchess of York is in Australia promoting her book. She's in Perth at the moment, actually. Angela, what can you tell us about her trip and about her book? How's it been received?
Look, she's getting a lot of attention. She had a sellout event over the weekend with, her sister was there as well. Of course, her sister has lived in Australia for a long time. She's got a 22-book deal with this publisher in Perth. This is where she's situated, children's books. And Sarah talks about the fact that the reason that she writes these children's books is she's readdressing the little girl that she once was. Now, if you know, lots of people don't know the Sarah Ferguson story, but it's tremendously sad. Her mother effectively left her when she was 14. She went and married an Argentinian polo player, moved to Argentina, left Sarah and her sister Jane with their father. Her mother then was killed in a car crash in the 90s, and Sarah's always had a really sad life. Then, of course, she went on, she was married to Prince Andrew then the toe sucking. But I think what's engaging about her is she's always got one foot in normal person territory, and that makes her really somebody that I don't know, I just find her really interesting. She's a great grandmother, a great mother to her kids, and I'm really interested to see what she does in the years ahead. So, and she's also great on social media. She doesn't put a lot of makeup on. She gets out there. She says what she thinks. It's a bit of a redemption story, and I'm there for it.
Oh, me too. I love that she's not a cookie cutter and she's just off doing her own thing. God love her. Now, lastly, Louise, and I've only got about 30 seconds, we understand Charles and Camilla are off to Italy for a royal tour. What are the details of that?
Well, who can blame them for going to Italy, Cara? I'm sure you would agree with that. Yes, apparently they've got a shorter royal tour next year. Whether they actually get to the Vatican to see Pope Francis is a bit of a question mark around that. But they've already been to France and Germany together as King and Queen. And I think it's all part of Charles's philosophy and hope to sort of strengthen ties across the European continent while he is king as well. So the details will come out, I'm sure, early next year of where they will go in Italy. But yes, I think buoyed by the terrific success of their trip to Australia and Samoa, which we've talked about at length, of course. He's off with another tour, which is great. A short tour. I think a long tour will require some medical intervention, but of course now he's back in the UK having cancer treatment. We'll see him back on the continent sometime soon, I think.
We're all good for a few days in Italy.